The 10 deadliest planes of World War II. 10. Junkers Ju-87 Stuka. This was the plane that struck terror into the heart of Poland, and it came to symbolize the devastations of the Blitzkrieg at the beginning of the war. Its ability to bomb with deadly accuracy, coupled with the sirens dubbed Jericho trumpets, made ice water run through the veins. It was obsolete by the Battle of Britain, and it was withdrawn from combat midway through the war in the face of superior fighters like the Spitfire. But it served its purpose early on, and may still be the most recognizable German World War II plane today. 9. Republic P-47D Thunderbolt. Flown by the US and several other Allied forces during the war, the P-47D was mostly used either as a bomber escort or for its remarkable ground fighter capabilities. Each one was heavily armed with 850 cal machine guns and 2,500 pounds of rockets or bombs. Unfortunately, range was a problem for the P-47D, which meant that the P-51 Mustang ended up taking over many of its previous bomber escort duties and long-range missions. At least 12,500 P-47Ds were built, far more than any other model of Thunderbolt before or since. 8. P-51 Mustang. Although the Tuskegee Airmen flew a few different planes, the P-51 Mustang is the one for which they are most remembered. Members of the 332nd Fighter Group painted the tail of their P-51 Mustangs red, thus earning the nickname Rat Tails or Rat Tail Angels. They flew with distinction mostly as bomber escorts in Europe. They were later regarded as some of the best pilots the US Air Force had produced in its history up to that point. Armament included 650 cal machine guns and either 10 5-inch rockets or 2,000 pounds of bombs per plane. 7. Lockheed P-38 Lightning. Two engines made this bad boy twice as awesome as previous fighters in the Allied arsenal. Its reputations earned it the Luftwaffe nickname the Fork-tailed Devil. Equipped with 450 cal machine guns and a single 20mm cannon, it was a fearsome force to be reckoned with. The P-38 Lightning was very versatile too. It performed admirably as a long-range escort fighter, dive bomber, level bomber, ground straffer, and photo reconnaissance plane. 6. Messerschmitt Bf-109. Lucky for Great Britain that it had the Spitfire, because this was the only plane at the time that could match the might of the Bf-109 in combat. The Luftwaffe used this plane in combat throughout the war. It was so successful that the plane continued to be used in Spain and Israel in the post-war years. Several variants existed, each with different deadly armament suites. 5. Supermarine Spitfire. The Spitfire was how Great Britain won the Battle of Britain against the German Luftwaffe forces. It's also how the Royal Air Force fought Germany's V-1 rockets, thwarting and destroying more than 300 of them before they could hit their targets. Considering the F-1 rockets that weren't intercepted killed 30,000 British civilians, that's quite a record. 4 different armament suites existed for Spitfires over the course of the war. Spitfires were equipped with 8 7.7mm machine guns, 4 7.7mm machine guns, and 4 20mm cannons, or 2mm cannons, and 2 12.7mm machine guns. 4. Vought F-4U Corsair. Claiming an 11-to-1 kill ratio, the Corsair is widely considered to be the most successful fighter of World War II. The Japanese nicknamed it Whistling Death due to its distinct engine noise. The Corsair's inverted gull-wing design ably accommodated both the gigantic propeller and the short, stout landing gear that was an integral part of its design. To improve its aerodynamic efficiency, flush riveting and the new technique of spot welding were used so that the plane's body was as smooth as possible, with nothing interrupting airflow. The armament suite included 650 cal Colt Browning M2 machine guns and other 2 1,000-pound bombs or 8 5-inch rockets. 3. Nakajima B-5N. One of the trifecta of Japanese planes that took part in the deadly attack of Pearl Harbor, the B-5N was also a major part in nearly every Japanese victory during the following year. With an armament consisting of a single rear-firing 7.7mm machine gun and capacity for either 1,764 pounds of bombs or a single 1,764-pound torpedo, it claimed a 90% hit rate against enemy targets. 2. Mitsubishi A6M0. This is the plane that answered the questions of whether the US would get into World War II. On December 7, 1941, Mitsubishi A6M0s, Nakajima B-5Ns, and IG-D3As were launched from Japanese aircraft carriers in the attack against the US naval installations at Pearl Harbor. Armament included 2 7.7mm machine guns, 2 20mm cannons, and 2 132-pound bombs. in addition to being a long-range fighter with maneuverability, speed, and range that outclassed Allied fighters at the beginning of the war. This was the plane that Japanese kamikaze pilots flew on suicide mission. 1. B-29 Super Fortress. 3 separate companies built B-29 Super Fortress during World War II, based on a design submitted to the US Army by Boeing in 1939 before the US entered the war. Boeing built 2,766, while Bell built 668 and Martin built 536. The Soviets copied the design and called their versions the Tupolev Tu-4. Roughly 1,000 Super Fortresses flew in the Pacific Combat Theater at the time. They came armed with 12 50 cal machine guns, one 20mm cannon, and a 20,000-pound bomb load. The most famous B-29 of all was the Enola Gay, which dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. A second B-29 named Boxcar dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki 3 days later.